And we are live. We have another edition of A Book and a Beverage, and fortunately, Roe's not here right now, but he's coming in just a second. We are here today, luckily, with the one and the only P.L. Stuart, author of The Drowned Kingdom. And is that the name of the series?
The series is called The Drowned Kingdom Saga. The first book in the series is called A Drowned Kingdom.
There we go. So welcome, PL. How are you?
Thank you so much, Mike. I'm doing great. How are you? Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
And where are you calling in from?
I am calling in from lovely Barrie, Ontario, Canada. So that's about an hour north of the city of Toronto, which is the biggest city in Canada and one of the biggest in North America.
So due north of Michigan then, for those of us who don't have that much Canadian geography?
So northeast. So basically, think about, you've been to Detroit?
No, I've never been to Michigan, but I know where it is. I can find the mitten on the map. So
Okay, well, I lived in Windsor one time, and Windsor is on the other side of Detroit, across the Detroit River. So the Canadian side is basically, they share the border, shared there. So Detroit on one side, Windsor the other. I used to live in Windsor not too long ago, and so drive 3 hours, three and a half to 4 hours east of that, and go a bit north. That's Barrie. You got to kind of cut through Toronto.
On behalf of all Americans, if you had to live right there across the river from Detroit, please let me apologize.
Detroit's not so bad, man. It's they've really done a lot to really revitalize the downtown area. I remember when I was much younger, in my wild and crazier party days, going across, to Detroit for quite the nightlife going on. But the big thing with them is, because I'm a huge football fan, is Lions have really, they're not my team, but Lions have really improved. So good on you, Detroit.
So you follow like American football or CFL?
Both, man. I'm a huge football fan. I'll watch anything. I'll watch USFL, or now they got the new league going on. Yeah, I'll watch any football. Arena League, football's on. I'll pretty well watch it.
Did you see this thing on like TikTok? In Germany, apparently they have an American football league, but it's done on a hockey rink.
I'm not on TikTok, but I did hear about that. That must be crazy. Keeping your footing on even turf is tough. Right. But I think just for what's in giggles, I'd watch that just to see people slide all over the place and try to talk to people. Kind of hard when you get hit and you land on the ice. That must be a bit painful.
To be fair, I mean, they're not running full tilt. They're kind of mincing their way down the ice, But it's just kind of fascinating to watch because of that. It's like everything. It's like a game played in slow motion.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about hockey, which is a fast sport, and Canadian. That's a big sport up here. It's a fast sport, and obviously there's lots of physical contact, lots of collisions, and people get hurt. But I'm just thinking, like, football. I have to see it to conceptualize it, kind of thing. Like, I don't know. In my mind, I'm thinking hockey with football pads, but it's got to be different from that. So.
You follow the Leafs?
Oh yeah, I don't, not as much as I used to, because I think. Even me, I'm a homer. I'm a diehard Toronto, all the Toronto teams, Raptors, Leafs, etc. But even I'm an old graybeard, and they have won the cup since before I was born. I'm 55 this year. That's a long time. Not that I'm still not loyal to them. I just don't watch every game the way I would when I was younger, because
As an old Expos fan, I feel you.
Yeah, but at least your team relocated and went to Washington and won a World Series.
They died and went away, and baseball sucks now.
I love it. See, that's a diehard fan, man. Respect that, man. Respect that.
My dream was always to see a Blue Jays Expos World Series.
Oh yeah. And the year that strike, when
they
the
were
Expos
15 and a half games up in the National League East.
Yeah, that was the year, and karma, fate, whatever you want to call it, intervened.
They were crushing people. It was great.
Yeah, they had a fantastic team, and some of the Expos, some of the people went through. I mean, Vladdy Guerrero, obviously I'm a Blue Jays fan. Vladdy Guerrero Jr., his dad, Larry Walker, like the caliber of Dennis Martinez was up there one time. Like, they had a lot of great players.
I think before they went away, I think Gary Carter was still there.
Gary Carter was still there. Hall of Famer.
Somebody was there, and Tim Raines.
Yep.
Oh.
Top caliber team, man, but wasn't meant to be.
All right. Next week on the baseball show.
Yeah. So, when did you publish your first book, PL? We're going to actually talk about your book, I swear.
I believe you. You guys are hardcore, man. This is this 2021 was when I first published A Drowned Kingdom. I publish a book every year in succession. That's my goal. God willing, as long as I'm healthy, strong enough to write, I have all the mental faculties. It's rough when you get older, but I published a book in a year. Drowned Kingdom 2021. Last year Atlantis 2022. Lord King 2023. And you guys are good luck. You guys are my good luck charm, seriously, because I didn't have author copies of the book 4 yet. And some people have been buying it and showing it off. I'm like, I don't even have my copy yet. And just before this podcast, literally, the shipment came in. Oh, and I have. So you guys are my good luck charm, man. So thank you for that.
So that's the fourth. That's a pretty hefty book there.
Yeah, it's the fourth book. It is 600 pages long. This is the longest book of this series so far. It's gonna kind of go backwards. It kind of got incrementally bigger, and then this is about as big and chunky as it's gonna get, and it's gonna go backwards a bit. The next few books will be a bit shorter, but the average is like A Drowned Kingdom was 400 pages. The last Atlantis was closer to 5, and then Lord King was just over 5, and now this is 6. So this is a big. It feels so much. It's funny. It's only, I'll say 100 pages, but it feels so much thicker than Lord King. But by fantasy standards, I mean, if you read the Brandon Sandersons and the Stephen Ericksons, and those are 1,000+ page chonkers, man. So I ain't got nothing on those books. So
to be fair, I think the fourth book of the Harry Potter series was the biggest of all of them. So yeah, that was a doorstopper. And I won't lie to you. I like big books. I will not lie. I do like chonkers. I do have a sweet spot. Like, I actually really prefer between 350-ish to 500. It's not that if it's more than that, I won't read it. I just mean that I think that's my ideal book. And that's what I try to write. This one, again, I strayed over by 100 pages. But you know what? It is what it is. I mean, if you like it, hopefully it's 100 pages that like almost like a bonus. If you don't, obviously it's 100 pages that's slogging. But, hopefully if you're at this point in the series, your book 4, hopefully you like the series, right? I don't think you're gonna keep reading if you don't like it. Well, I think a lot of readers don't realize is that I don't think most writers set out to write a 500-page book or a 600-page book. You set out to write a story, right? And if the story just happens to take 600 pages, well, then that's the way it is,
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? This book, because it's kind of like that watershed book, that pivotal book in the series, also the kind of like the middle book, right? The 4th out of 7. And this one has a lot of huge reveals and a lot of things that were foreshadowed, and you would have been questioning in the first 3 books, what does this mean? Now you get a lot of big, oh wow moments where you find out and you're like, holy moly, that's what was going on. So and of course, as you go deeper into the series, as the series winds down, you give more and more of those reveals, and there's more and more Easter eggs, so to speak. So that's what necessitated this big, thick monster. So
when you started writing this, I mean, did you plan it as a 7-book series from the very beginning?
Yeah, I planned it as a total of 20 books in the universe. What happened is that I originally wrote this big thing that was more than well over 1,000 pages. And after you're a bit naive and you start to do your research, you realize, okay, I'm a no-name indie author. No one ain't reading 1,000 pages plus from me. So therefore, doing some more research, and my lovely wife, Debbie, hey, I love you if you watch this later, sweetheart. She's the real brain. She's the marketing manager. She's the publishing manager. So she's got a background in marketing, and we talked about things. And I said, hun, what do you think if I chop this bad boy up into a longer series? And she's like, okay, 3-4 books. I'm like, no, like 7. She goes, well, sounds good. One book tends to sell the other. It's a tough thing to know because you will never sell as many copies as you do of the first book of the series.
Right.
The first book of the series will always be the best reviewed because people either continue and love it or they'll bail. But even if they love it, especially reviewers now and readers, they have these huge to be read lists. They might read book 1, this year and not get back to book 2 for 5 years. And that's not because they don't like it, it's just because of all the variety of the reading taste and how how heavy certain people's reading lists are. But anyways, yeah. So 7 books. That's what I was planned, and I'm a kind of an obsessive planner. And I have all the titles planned out for all the books, all 20 books.
Yes.
I have the covers planned out. I have the plots all planned out. Everything's mapped out pretty well.
You got a wall of sticky notes?
No, most of it's up my crazy noggin. The rest is in, mostly written, typewritten notes. And I have these books have appendices and family trees and things like that. However, I have even more expansive ones, in my little private database. And, it's pretty comprehensive what I have planned as history and lore and backstory. So
Plotters of the world unite.
Yes.
Mike, we got to stop bringing on these people who plot like this, because I just feel so bad.
No, man, no.
Random notes scattered here and there, the odd little, voice recording, and then I make a note of something. I don't have these. I have vague ideas of lineage, but nothing really. I don't know what's happening in the next book yet.
But that's okay. But it works for you, right? The most thing. Listen, there's room for so-called pantsers, so-called plotters. There's a lot. What's great about what you do is a lot of spontaneity there. You leave yourself a lot of room for different characters that maybe you didn't think. Okay, well, I wrote this character, but you know what? I really like them, and I want them to have more agency, and want them to have a bigger role. And you can just do that on the fly, right? You don't have to, because you didn't plot yourself into a corner, right? So that's a good thing, man. It's not a bad thing at all.
You can also ad-lib yourself into a corner.
So, hey, Ro, I'm not exactly as much of a plotter as I want to be.
Nice. There I am, right there.
I love the big sticky notes, man. I love the sticky notes. That's awesome.
So I'm glad you said that, people have big TBRs and they don't get back to it, because I am guilty of having read your first book and not having got back to book 2 yet.
Hey, nothing but love for you, man. You read the first book. I'm honored. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, it's a long series. And you know what? You're running a long series. You told before we came in here, you talked about the same thing, that you're a long series writer too. And frankly, the phenomenal. I love these authors, so they're not who should not be named. But let's talk frankly about the George R. R. Martin and Patrick Rothfuss, and the fact that okay, some people are a bit squeamish about investing in a long series until it's completed, because of, unfortunately, some very, very famous authors who are very, very popular. And I don't blame them. They have their reasons why they haven't done it. But for you and I and anyone else that writes these long series, I've had people tell me up front, Peel, your series looks really cool, man. I really want it, but I got to make sure until you get to like book 5 or 6, maybe, then I'll invest. And some people told my friend, I didn't read it till you prove me it's done. And I respect that. Hey, no issues, right? And people have, I'm already saying, some people have given the temptation. They've been like, okay, the man's kept his word. He's published a book every single year in the spring. I'll put my money that he's going to keep doing it. As long as he's alive, he'll keep doing it. So that's what I'm trying to do. I keep that commitment, and just show it, prove it, right?
Yeah.
I've done it every year. So if I keep doing it, then I prove it.
Just promise us this. If HBO picks up your book and makes a series out of it, and you make $1 gajillion, and you only then have one job in life, which is to write the final book, write the book.
Your lips to God's ears, sir. If I
have one freaking job.
But you know what though? Okay, and I'm sorry. Like, I know it's a bit of a tangent, but let's talk about GR. Okay, one of my favorite authors. I got all the stuff on my shelf back there. What he's written, anyways, a lot of it. So this is someone who has a lot of stuff going on. He's helping to produce a top TV show. He is helping in all kinds of side projects. They have all kinds of other adaptations in the works. He's running other books. But beyond that, let's just assume, like, none of us really know the truth. But let's go by what he said and what a lot of us suppose. The supposition is that, okay, you wrote this big, massive thing. It got adapted for TV. It totally blew up into this one of the most popular things of all time. People didn't like the way it ended, and it ended after you stopped writing and stopped giving precise source material to the showrunners. So the showrunners were forced to like, okay, we're gonna take your notes and just do our own thing. People didn't like that, understandably, and everybody's entitled to their opinion. I mean, I think that, you know, part of that is, okay, so now that that's happened, what do I do? How do I recover this perception that I didn't finish it well, right? And mind you, this is, again, from what I understand, the showrunners just went off notes. They didn't have the complete, like an outline. And they decided, okay, we're going to do what we have to do, right? We have a budget. We want to do other things. We don't want to drag this out. So we're going to do what we're going to do. And we're going to end it this way. A lot of people didn't like it. So now, in some ways, I think for GR, his reputation is he might feel that it's tarnished. And how do I make recompense for that fact? How do I atone for that, even though it's technically, in a way, not really my fault, but it is, because the assumption is, had they had the source material, then it would have, and had he written those books already, it would have been so much better. So now you got to do that. And then plus, if you guys have read George R. R. Martin, he writes some pretty big, somewhat unwieldy plots, tons of characters, tons of plot lines. Now you got to reel all that in, make sense of it, and then make a book that's, and every writer's driving for continuous improvement. You go, folks know that, writers, and make it better than the last book. Like, that's a lot of pressure, man. It's a lot of pressure.
So,
I'm going to say this, and I mean this in the nicest way possible.
Uh-oh.
That is the most Canadian damn thing I have ever heard. That was the nicest possible way you could ever say anything about the guy. Kind of apologizing for him and not laying any blame on him when it was his fault. It's all his fault.
Yeah, I guess Canadians have a rep of being overly polite, perhaps. But no, seriously, in all seriousness, you know, the guy, you can see in his eyes, he's got that during the headlight eyes whenever he is interviewed about finishing the series.
Yeah. And,
you know, obviously now the biggest fear about the fan base is that, you know, he's getting up there now. So will he run out of life before he has time to read the books? So,
and that's what I'm really worried about. It's like, I'm going to be stuck with that damn ending as opposed to the one, you know, that we should get, whatever it is.
Well, that's when you get Brandon Sanderson to finish the series for you.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes. Now, mind you, I and I'll be the first to say, you know, I certainly respect Brandon Sanderson, like his entrepreneurship, his craft, his brand is second to none. I'll be, you know, I God forbid I get the privilege one day of interviewing Brandon Sanderson. I would tell him honestly that, you know, while I think he's great, there's so many things that I love about his books. I'm not a big fan of his prose. I love George R. R. Martin's prose, but you know, Brandon Sanderson's prose, it's accessible, and there's and hey, who am I to criticize the man that's selling billions and millions of books? But in my estimation, there's other writers whose prose I value more. I don't want to say I'm a prose snob, but I like the elevated stuff. And yeah, I don't get that out of Sanderson, but it's very accessible, and that's one of the reasons he sells a lot of books, man. And George R. R. Martin, I love the way he writes, and that's more on the side. I fall more on the side, or at least try to emulate the sides of the Jenny Wirtz and the George R. R. Martins and the guy Gabriel Kays and the you know.
I think I'm going to have to try Martin again, because I didn't really follow Game of Thrones. Are you like? Hold on, wait, hear me out.
I'm not a fan of Grimdark, and I thought his books were boring.
Well, okay. So I never really followed Game of Thrones. I'd see it like the odd episode here and there. It was okay. It wasn't something. I was more of a, this show is on, I have to watch it this week, with what the hell? I'm going to forget the name of the show. British show, Country House.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about.
Downton Street, or no,
Downton Abbey.
Oh, Downton Abbey. Oh, my mother's 88-year-old mother is a huge Downton Abbey fan. I took her on a date night. The last time I took her on a date night was to see the movie, right? So,
right. So I was much more invested in that. I did try to read his Martin's first book, and I think I made it a couple of chapters in, and I was just like, It just, I don't know. I mean,
Nothing wrong with that.
Maybe, you're spoiled, age, people will get spoiled by, growing up with Tad Williams and Tolkien and Saberhagen and, those folks. But I don't know. It's just, leave somebody around for more than 2 chapters. What it really was is I was pissed that they killed Ned Stark. So I think
but most of the people, and I agree with you, man. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. You're entitled to love what you love and not like what you like, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like,
no, I'm not.
Yeah,
we have a thing here. We always, I think, almost every episode, George R.R. Martin comes up, and we slag him off for not finishing that damn series because he's been for 10 years now.
Him.
What's that?
By we, you mean you.
But Tim, you got to say though that a lot of people think that was the real genius of George R. Martin, and that was the game changer in kind of like grimdark fantasy, where you kill the hero who everybody thought was gonna kind of solve the murder mystery and move on to like probably take over, become the good king, maybe they right and that feeling of no one's safe. I think that compunction to like, doesn't matter who you are, you're not safe. I think that I have to say for me, that added that sense of tension where no one's safe. So you really, a lot of times, you read books where the hero's got so much plot armor, he or she is not going to die no matter what. However, when you throw that randomness in there and you're like, oh, off with his head, sorry, spoilers for people. I think most people have heard the plot by now. So I apologize if I'm spoiling anything.
You're not going to offend anybody who's watching this. I guarantee it. So I just looked it up on Google.
No.
Do you know when his last Song of Ice and Fire book came out?
So that would be was it 2000s or 90? Was it 90s or 2000s? Late 90s or 2000?
2011.
2011. Okay.
13 years. You don't have to put many words down a day to get to a book in 13 years.
If I'm lucky, 13 years I'll have 14 books.
Right, exactly. There you go.
But I'm not going to sell a gazillion copies and have become rich off of an HBO special, right? So
yeah, I think that's it, right? Once you get make that kind of money and you're buying houses on the beach, kind of like, let them wait.
but hey, the minute that there's a firm announcement,
oh my God,
that book 6 is coming out, it will be automatic #1 on New York bestseller list. It will automatically preemptively sell millions of copies. So for all that we complain, if suddenly something happened and George R. Martin tomorrow said, hey guys, okay, it's ready, it's at the publishers, and the publisher puts out, yep, it's coming out. It will be the biggest selling book in the world, right?
I have an idea for him in case he should fall onto this show. So here's what he needs to do. The first chapter, wrap it up like a flashback scene. So wrap up that whole series, however you're going to do it, and then make the whole book about like a generation in the future. That way HBO can recast it with all new people, and you can make even more money.
Now, there's a smart man. You should be working for HBO, brother.
Oh, I really should.
You're working for HBO.
So, Theo, I want to ask you, audiobooks. Do you have audiobooks for all of your books?
No, sir. I have audiobooks for the first one, and I love, obviously I'm biased, but I absolutely love the audiobook for Drowned Kingdom. Yeah. I have 2 voice actors actually for that audiobook, Adam Curtin and Sean Polite. And the brilliance of what they do. So Adam Curtin he plays the main characters and the Atlantean characters, and Othrin, the main characters. And Sean Polite does the Altnish and the other characters that are outside. And they're both brilliant. And they're equally brilliant. But I gotta say this specifically about Adam Curtin. No one captures the snooty, privileged, you're the scum on my bottom of the shoe kind of vibe that Othrin has. Then he absolutely nailed it. you just want to throw punch this guy in a good way when you hear him talk, and how he disdainfully is, how he looks down on people. He nails that part with that, British accent that's, holier than thou. Like he just, he does.
So PL, thank you for that, because I don't actually physically read much anymore. I do mostly audiobooks. So now I know why I haven't got to book 2.
Well, to be honest with you, and I went, fairly high end. I mean, some authors, great, they have audiobooks for all their books, and they do it themselves, or they have, however they've done it, they've been able to do it on the cost effective side. And my audiobook was somewhat expensive, and they're expensive to make depending on what you want to spend. And I feel for the quality, I definitely wouldn't want to do it myself. I had to do a reading for, like, I think it was either for a con I was going to, just to read like a couple lines on books. Do you know how many takes I had to do? I stumbled over I wrote the damn thing. I stumbled over every single word. It took me like 6 takes. I gained new respect for audiobook narrators. I was like, not for me. So there's no way I'm doing my book. It has to be a professional, and that ain't me. So that said, as well, I want to focus on getting the series done, because it's a long ass series. Yeah. So get all the books out, then we can go back and revisit and see about audiobooks. But the first one is, like I said, the first book is the most important, and I want to give that accessibility that, hey, you have the option to consume an audiobook and then see what happens later on, right? So, but my goal is to get all 7 books out in physical and ebook form, and then we can go back and revisit and see about audiobooks in the future. But the first book, A Drowned Kingdom, does have an audiobook, and I think it's a good one.
So I have a follow-on question. Is there anything more nerve-wracking than doing a reading of your own book?
No.
I had to do one last April. I was there with another author. It's like, when they come in, and then a woman came in, she's like, one of you, and she pointed at me, and I'm like, no, have him read his book. Oh my God. I mean, there was 2 people, another author and this one woman who came in, and I'm like, okay. My nephews used to laugh at me when I tried to read their kids' books to them, but let's try this.
That is awesome. Yeah, it is. And you know what? One of I told you guys before we came on camera, like, I'm part of Page Chewing, the podcast side, with my wonderful co-host made between the pages. Shout out to Taylor. Check out her channel; she's amazing. And we, one of our guests was in the last year was Travis Baldry, who is now a New York Times bestselling author for Legends and Lattes, and he an independent author who went traditionally published, and again, but prior to writing this best-selling mega hit Legends and Lattes, and he's still doing it. Obviously, his trade is he's an audiobook narrator, and a top-notch one. And just you listen to him, he makes it sound easy, but like I said, and you've had the same experience. Like, after fumbling over trying to read something that you wrote, it's humbling. So, I hats off to audiobook narrators.
My wife has told me that she has bought books simply because of the reader, right? The narrator. And I think, audiobook production is probably one of those few things in life that you get what you pay for. And it's going to be worth spending that money, because the difference will be very apparent.
Yeah, I agree.
So, question from Smoky Dude.
Okie Dude, how's it going, brother? Have I read Black Leopard? Well, no, but believe it or not, it's on my shelf. It's down there, but I've had that for years. Marlon, what's the last name? What's the author's like? Marlon James. I can't remember his last name, but I have that. I like everybody else. I have TBRs to the sky. There's so many books I desperately want to read that I haven't got to. So, and that's why, like I said, even if you like my series and you read book 1 and you don't get to, I get it, right? There's series that I'm desperately trying to read. If I only got to book 1, right, and I haven't progressed farther, or I haven't got to book 1. So
this is kind of our fault, though, right? I mean, because you're putting out a book a year, I'm putting out 1 to 2, Mike's putting out 1 to 2. So you have all these people putting out all this product. Where 20 years ago, maybe 30, that wasn't happening. You would have 6 releases this month, or 15 from the big 5 publishing houses, or whatever it was, across all the different genres. And now you've got 150 new fantasies coming out every week. We're kind of victims of the I won't say our own, but maybe yours, but the system's success, really. But all of that, I do have a question. So you have your giant TBR pile. When it is time to pick something new, how do you decide?
Well, my other side thing I do is I'm a blogger. So shout out to the wonderful Beth Tablin for your blog, which is an amazing blog site. They do fantasy, horror, sci-fi. I am an assistant editor there, so I'm part of the team. And a lot of it now is honestly recs, so recommendations from other bloggers, YouTubers, and community. I don't have time to watch YouTube as much as I'd like to, and I have my own channel, and I do podcasts on YouTube with Taylor, but I mean that is a lot of my recs are people I know and I trust their opinion, and I'm a bit more discerning than I used to be, and obviously I don't have time with writing my own books in life. I'm still working a real full-time job, being an author, and I have now I'm an empty nester now. It's funny, our youngest Deb and I, my wife, we have 7 kids between the two of us, and 3 grandkids between the two of us, and the oldest one, sorry, she's 5. Oh, she's just so amazing, but very high energy. So she's running around wrecking the house for the last couple of days, and we were just enjoying it and enjoying her. And then she's gone. Then you do the big cleanup. It's like, oh man, I remember when I used to do that all the time. It was nothing. Now you get tired. But yeah, like
You're
I have
a grandfather of 2.
3. Three between Deb and I. Deb's oldest son has a 5-year-old, and then I have 2 2-year-olds with my 2 of my oldest kids. So yeah.
Good God, man. God bless you. You look great for granddad.
Oh, thanks, brother. I appreciate that. But yeah, so I have more time. I have more time as empty nester, but still, I'm much more selective. And I think people wonder. I said to myself, you know why I've had so much success with thanks, okie with positive reads and lots of 5-star reviews is because I'm very selective about what I read. I don't have time to read something that I think automatically I don't like. Not that I won't take a chance, because how something's really good until ultimately you crack a few pages. But I would hate someone to just write off my book because they thought it wasn't for them. But if you do, that's fine. I'm just saying, I think I'm old enough to know that you can get to something and not think potentially, oh, this is for me, but then you end up loving it. And I've had quite a few books like that. So I tend to select based on the community. If you guys give me a rec, I'm like, okay, if Mike and Tim, if we kind of have the same taste, blah blah, and I trust their opinion. Yeah, I look at other people's TBRs and obviously I'm like anyone else. I'm susceptible to a certain degree of what's popular. I'm very specific with my tastes. I pretty well stick with epic fantasy. Thank you, Okido. Yeah, 55 in a couple of days. So, but
written.
God,
I always think
younger than me.
Yeah, Britton. How old are Ro and I? We probably don't want to know. Don't answer that.
Hey, but listen, you know what? And that's sorry, I don't want to interrupt here. Like my biggest thing is that I'm so proud of is like I was worried because I'm like I'm part of the club, okay? So I got a big bald spot. You can't see, like right in the middle of my head, like right about there. And it's. I mean, I think it's genetics. I never met my dad, but the pictures I have of him, same thing. So I am part of the club. Just to make sure you're aware that I am balding. So, and I do cut my hair low on top of that. So that's like double. So I consider myself an honorary member of Bald&Balding. So
I always tell people,
just gonna put that out there.
Our brains are just so big it pushed out all the hair.
Oh, I like that, man. I like that.
It's a great thought.
Yeah. PL, I have a question for you. I thought up on my drive home. We've not asked any other author.
Okay.
And I don't know if you're the perfect one for this since you're Canadian, but have you put any people that you know in your books and follow on? Have you killed them?
Yes, and yes.
And are you willing to share who?
Well, first of all, a lot of the characters in my books are based partially, not entirely. They are, somewhat of a caricature of mostly family members, close family members. So my kids and stepkids, which I consider my kids, so all 7, like I said, between Deb and I, grandkids, yeah, I have a lot of those written into my books. Very, I won't say thinly disguised. I mean, there are elements of them. They're not the whole. If I make a character, I'm not just going to totally power them after one of the kids. But there are elements, and they know that, and they get a kick out of it. So
that's
they
just
do
a
get a
way to
kick out
make
of
sure they're good when they're at your house, isn't it?
it.
If you're not
Well,
good, Granddad will kill you in the book.
Well, the youngest ones, I'm sure they have no understanding that the oldest one, Debs, that was over here recently, she has no. I tell her, but the concept, obviously, right? She's 5, right? So, but yeah, it's kind of cool, I think, and I enjoy doing that. Hey, excuse me, it's EL. What's up, EL?
So now we have to start over because EL just got here.
Right. Let's do it all again.
He's a cool dude, man. EL's a cool dude. I don't know if I'm cool enough to rock with EL, but glad he's here. Thanks for coming out.
I think we're obligated to ask this. You play D&D?
Not anymore. When I was much younger, I didn't have a lot of time in my formative years. The John cuts. I didn't have a lot of time in my formative years to. I mean, I used to like video games. Most of my life, my adult life, I haven't had time to play them the way a lot of people have. D&D. I know the old D&D, right?
Right.
I would be totally lost now trying to play a D&D. But I'm not a huge lit RPG fan. I'm not not that I haven't read Souls books and liked them. But I know a lot of my friends are gamers. A lot of my author friends, as you know, are. And I don't know if you guys are too. If you're big gamers and big D&Ders, but yeah. Oh, okay, Tim, you're okay. Fantastic. So you school me, Tim. Like I said, I haven't played in years, but I think it's the creativity and just being free to lose yourself, like what we do with our worlds that we create. I think it's such a cool thing, right? Like games are such a cool thing. So,
he's being critical of your river that flows both ways.
Yeah. So, believe it or not, there's reasons for that, but I won't get into it now. But that's okay. I don't mind you looking for the scientific accuracy of the river flow. So, well, thank you. I'm honored. Got to sport a little swag, right? So, thank you.
What do you do for a day job?
I am in law enforcement.
Okay, that's pretty broad.
Well, I do have one rule, and no disrespect, please don't think of it. It's not because you guys that I don't really talk about my employer.
Okay.
When I'm retired, I certainly will. But while I'm still active, I don't really talk.
Please let him be a Mountie. Let him be a Mountie.
So yeah, but
have you ever seen the movie Canadian Bacon?
Yes, that was. Oh my gosh, that's a while back.
Oh, that was a long time ago. John Candy.
Ages. Yeah, John Candy. Yeah. That's ages. Oh, I love John. He was great guy. That's such a shame. Yeah, he was funny as hell. But yeah. Everybody loves
Stephen Wright was a Mountie in that, I think.
Yeah. Everybody loves the bounties, right? It's a red surge, right? It's pretty. It's a pretty cool outfit. Let's be honest, right? You have to have the figure still to wear it, which I don't. I used to, but you have to have the physique to sport that, to make it look really impressive. So yeah, John, Uncle Buck. Oh yeah, Uncle Buck. Yeah, that's great. Great.
So, PL, I have a question for you. I saw you said this somewhere else, and I can't remember where because memories, they don't last. But you said that there's a reason why you called the people the Atlanteans and that you would explain it later. Have you done that yet in your series?
Only to a certain degree. So, okay. For example, no big spoiler here. It's not going to wreck anything. That the founder of the society, his name was Atalan, and that's how Atalanteans, and the variation as in terms of Atlan, like as in Atlantis versus Atalantics. That's and the X suffix is also symbolic of something, but again, I don't want to spill too much. But it's there's reasons for that. So
okay,
you find out more in the prequel trilogies. Essentially, you don't get the whole story in this series. For the prequel series, you get the goods. So
So your big book of everything, you just are doling out hints as you go through your 7-book series.
Yep. So well, thanks. Yeah. There's. I'm definitely not Arthurian. Much. I mean, my major was, I took medieval literature and minor history, and in school that was my major. Really. And
Your major with what?
Medieval literature with a minor in history.
Hell out, really?
Yeah. That's what I took.
You're the one.
I'm the one. Yeah, but I'm a big Arthurian fan, as you'll indicate.
That would be. See, in Canada, you could probably hard to spend $80,000 on a medieval literature degree.
Well, no, hey, look one of my all-time favorite people, amazing gentleman, booktuber, Philip Chase. He's got a PhD. He's a professor, and he's a medievalist, and he's a Tolkien scholar and great writer, amazing writer. Check out his Edan trilogy if you like Tolkien and John Gwynne, and he's got a little bit of everything there. But I like the medieval stuff, right?
I'm not bagging on you. Don't get me wrong. I would go get a PhD just so someone would call me a Tolkien scholar. I think that would be the coolest thing in the world.
Well, I'm no scholar. Phil Chase is a Tolkien scholar, but EO was really kind enough to message me, and he kind of said, "Oh, I get it. Shades of Arthur in your book." I think Arthur's kind of like an equivalent, and there are Arthur is a composite of many different ancient rulers from different time periods, but there's a lot of medieval influence and inspiration there. So, and I am a big Arthurian legend fan. So yeah, you do get that vibe, but it's not directly based on Arthur, on the legend of Arthur. But I love the classics. Now we're going well back beyond things like Sir Thomas Malory and Lamort Arthur. You're talking about the Iliad and the Odyssey and the Aeneid and all the Greek tragedies, things like that. So So, but yeah, E.L.'s a very sharp, very astute guy. He picked that out pretty quickly. Of course, there's a lot of great, very astute readers and writers out there.
So I just have to say, Phil Chase's books have the best covers I have seen in I don't know how long.
Phil Chase is one of the smartest people I've met in this sphere. Some good Irish and Scottish legends, and he, he has done. I think he's worked on translations of Beowulf. Like he's just big brain energy, right? So, read his books, his Edan trilogy. He published them all this past year, and just top notch as a person. Top notch as a writer, top notch as a booktuber. I mean, his channel is extremely well respected and well regarded, and he's a great writer. And I love his stuff, and can't say enough about it. And his covers are, this whole stained glass vibe, phenomenal. They're down there on the shelf too, and I was honored that he sent me the last two, I think. So yeah, he's a phenomenal person, just a warm, wonderful human being, and a fantastic author. So. And indie, too. So, yeah. So
you said your first book came out in 21. So was that a product of COVID?
No, honestly, Tim, like I'd got to that point in life where, like I said, I was really busy working, progressing my career, raising a family, and I just didn't have the headspace, the mind, the energy to write. I always wanted to. It was also something I wanted to do. And I was out of fantasy for a while. Fantasy was my first love, and I was really into it, and then I got out of it. And then, and then I was, for a while, because of my job, I was reading predominantly police procedurals, murder mysteries, things like that. And then I got away from that, and I really rediscovered fantasy. And I owe it to, shout out to you, Miles Christian Cameron, someone who I consider a friend, amazing person. You need to read, if you like the big epic fantasy, and especially he's probably one of the best writers for battle scenes that's out there, him and the John Gwynns and Devin Winters, and he's a reenactor. He goes all over the world, dressed up and fighting pretend battles, and he knows everything there is to know about armament and swords. And I went to his house, and he's got all the, you're there swinging a big authentic medieval sword, and he's just an incredible guy. And brilliant. I dub him the most interesting man in the world. He's worked for like NCIS, like the real, like this guy is like He was an intelligence officer in the military. Yeah, he's a real deal. Anyways, he's a very prolific author. He's written probably well over 30 books. He does fantasy, historical fiction. Very well respected author. Very prolific author. Written a lot. But yeah, anyways, he reading his Trader Sun cycle started, which the first book is The Red Knight. Again, it's high up on my shelf there somewhere behind me on the other side. Yeah, that got me. I wanted to write. He inspired me. I wanted to write something huge and epic after reading his series, and I read that in my 40s, right? So, and then I realized that, as you know, you guys know, when you get to a certain point in life, you realize you have more years behind than ahead, even if you live a long life, and you start thinking, I've always wanted to write a book, and time's running out. So, if I want to have a decent, backlist, so to speak, then and you want an extensive body of work, you better get on it. So finally, I was in the headspace, and my lovely wife Deb, again, she was so supportive, and I was in the right frame of mind, the right type of relationship. She was so, like I said, eminently supportive, and she's like, "Let's go for this. I'll partner with you. I'll help with the business side, kind of free you up to do more of the writing stuff." And it's worked amazing, and because of that, that has allowed me everything she's done to take care of other things so that I can write. She's just the most amazing partner a man could ask for, and she's these books they would not be on the shelf if it wasn't for her. So, but the point is that I strive for consistency and writing a book every year, and so far I've kept that promise, and I think that has allowed me to catch up, somewhat to where, if I'm lucky, God willing, I live a decently long life. Hopefully, I have 20, 30 books, right? 40 books, but that wouldn't be possible if it was really, because I started late. Didn't publish till my 50s. So,
and EL's right. I mean, that kind of support. I think it would be someone would make a lot of money if they started a dating app that all they did was they marketed it toward writers, and the only people that could be in the dating app were like artists and people who dealt with what your wife does. God, I just lost
marketing,
the word.
like marketing.
Marketing. Thank you. I lose words all the time, which is why I haven't had a book out for a while. Yeah, and my guess is that Mike hit the wrong button by accident. What's your guess? That's my guess.
Yeah, I'm thinking so. He probably went to maybe click unmute or something and hit the leave. I've done it.
He could have done that. It was an internet connection or something about his dog. But my guess is
I'm sure he'll be back. He'll be back.
Family's usually the first one to believe in you.
Yeah, well said.
You're right, EL, but that comes in like different forms. I've told it here before, so I'm not telling tales. I have a wife and 2 kids. None of them have. I've got 8 books out. None of them have read any of them. Right? It's not because they don't believe in me, but because they're like, I don't want to read it and not like it, and that's fair. Okay. But
or maybe sometimes it's not their thing, and like you said, and as EL is right, of course, but as you said, sometimes the support doesn't have to be reading and loving your book. The support,
giving you time to do it.
Yep, and helping you through those high points and low points as an author. When you get your first amazing review, yay! You get your first horrible review, oh my gosh! And of course, as you write more books, you realize that you come to an equilibrium. But I think that's the biggest part, because writing is tough, and in a lot of ways, although you have hopefully the support system behind you, it's a solitary activity in terms of actual writing. No one can write the book for you, right? Unless you have a ghostwriter or something, of course. But for most of us, we're slugging writing the thing ourselves, and you go through. I don't know if you've been through, and you and Mike, imposter syndrome. I certainly have. It's bit me harder. It's funny. I only have 4 books, but after the second book, you kind of it changes, right? But at least for me, second book was really hard for me to write. But imposter syndrome is one of the pitfalls, I think. But and I mean, there's all the industry. I mean, I'm a self-published author. I mean, there's a lot, even with my wife being that ultimately supportive person who takes on so much to free me up. I mean, it's still a lot of work. And but being traditionally published is scary too, and is a lot of work, and there's a lot of pressure no matter what avenue you use to publish, right?
I think the one thing about traditional publishing is at least you've had that test group of people who have kind of all read it and they've had their little hack on it, or whatever, and then you kind of put it out there. But you're absolutely right. I mean, and we were talking about this earlier with the George R.R. Martin thing. There are people who don't like Tolkien. There are people who don't like R.A. Salvatore. There are, people who don't like everybody. And, it's just musically, right? There are people who don't like Rush, right? As a Toronto guy, I figure I'll throw that out there for you.
Thank you.
You don't like
it? Was one of my favorite groups growing up. So.
Oh, good. Okay.
And iconic. I mean, they are iconic. They are like
we can be friends.
The Canadian, one of the 4 or 5 Canadian groups, right? So
now there are more, right? I mean, there's a couple of new ones out.
Yeah, I used to keep up on newer stuff.
A friend of mine sent me. I think the Blue Stones is one.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I haven't really. I used to. You asked me music 20 years ago. Doesn't matter if it's rock, rap, hip hop, R&B, punk. But now I can't. I don't keep up anymore. So.
Now, there's lots of good Canadian. I mean, a lot of the music we listened to growing up, where I did, was Canadian music off a Montreal radio station. So we got into a lot of that. But there are people who like stuff and don't like stuff, and once you kind of come to grips with that, that's fine. What's the worst review you ever got?
The worst review I ever got. It was it was a 1-star, and the person's issue was the main character, because I read a difficult main character. I read a very difficult main character. And she had other issues in the book, but predominantly it was the main character. He is a flawed, bigoted. Most people would say he's a bit of an a-hole, and more than a bit of an a-hole, and he's very problematic. And but yet he has some positive qualities, and he's a very frustrating.
Because of that.
Sorry?
She didn't like him because of that.
Yeah, he's a very frustrating character. I mean,
that means you did your job perfectly well, right? You got through to her that this guy's an ass, and you shouldn't like him because of X, Y, and Z, and she didn't. And that's the kind of thing that bugs me a little bit about reviewers. It's like, I don't like that. Game of Thrones. You're not supposed to like Joffrey, right? Because he's a toad. But you love it when the dude chokes to death on his own vomit when he gets poisoned. That's great.
Yeah, but realizing that, again, we talked about everybody being entitled to their own taste. A lot of people want to read a book with characters, especially main characters, that they like. They want to be able to relate to them, see themselves a bit, or see aspects of that person that they really like. And not that I don't think author has that, and not that I don't think that people have mentioned that as well, but overall, he is an extremely flawed character. I wrote him that way for a reason, obviously. But I mean, everybody's entitled to what they like. If you don't want to read flawed characters, and if you don't want to read specifically characters, that's true. If you don't want to read characters some people read just for escapism. They don't want to read about these heavy themes that people like me write about. Misogyny, racism, colonialism. All these. They don't want to read about someone who's homophobic and says it. They don't want to read about and I get it, and there's nothing wrong with it. Some people just don't want to, and even if they don't mind heavy themes, they don't want to. They don't like those themes. So I think there's more to that. There's more to my books than that. But there's nothing wrong. I think I'm not sure how you feel, Tim, but very much as you get further in this writing game, you realize you're writing for an audience, right? And there's people who your book's going to bounce off to, and that's okay. But then some people are going to love it, and that's okay too. And it's all good. Every writer, no matter how big or small a following, typically finds their audience, and that may take 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 books. You get your authorial voice, and then hopefully you get a following. But whatever your following is, big or small, you're writing for that. It doesn't mean that people who don't normally read that kind of book can't pick it up and like it. It just means, for the most part, as you move on, people know what you write. They like what you write. They keep reading your books. The people that try 1 or 2 books and it's not for them, they move on to somebody else. Like you said, there's so many choices out there, right? But that's okay.
Yeah. And I think as an author, that especially in the current environment, right? There's so many shows like this and podcasts and things like that where all these people out there saying this is how to succeed and blah, blah, blah. Not everybody can succeed, right? There's just too many people putting out too much product for everybody else to buy enough of it so that everyone can succeed. So I think there are a lot of people, and I'll probably throw myself in this because I don't market at all. And I sell a commensurate amount of books with that marketing, right? But I don't worry about making a house payment or, buying a Snickers bar or anything with that money. So it's okay. But I mean, I think there are people who will get totally absorbed by that 1-star review, and it will absolutely, I mean, I guess it depends too. Is it the first review that you get, or is it the 100th review that you get, right? Because I'm going to look at them and I'll look at something, and if there's 1 or 2 bad reviews and only 5 reviews, I'll kind of go, all right, there's only 5 reviews. If there's 500 reviews and 300 of them suck, well, now we have a real problem, right? But
yeah, but I mean, at the same time, though, some people, like you said, they want to write for, some people publish a memoir, and that's the only book they want to write, and that's it. They're not writing it to sell a dime, or they just want to give it to their family members, right? And then some people are writing full time. Like I said, I have the luxury of having a full time gig that has a pension and benefits, and thank you, Yale. It's very, very kind of you. Pension benefits, job security, right. And I'm writing as a hobby. And when I'm done my career, in the next 5 to 7 years, I plan to write full time. However, I won't be relying on that for my income, right? And if you're not traditionally published and you don't get some big advance where you can kind of go, okay, I just made $50, $100, $200, $300, $400,000 up front, so I can kind of live off that for a couple of years, whatever. Unless you have that luxury, most writers are working at other jobs. It's not their full-time gig. Being like a full-time writer, yeah.
EL asked, I'm not going to throw it up here because we already did it. If EL got here on time, he would have heard it. What are your thoughts on audiobooks? He does ask, do you get good sales? Is it a different audience? But then he asked this, any interest in translating? And yeah.
So I've had a little bit of interest in translating. People approaching me for translation. Didn't work out. Which is fine. No issues with the people that have approached me. I've had a couple of minor, like more tacit approaches. So the way I look at it, if it happens, that's great. I'm at this weird juncture where all I'm really focused on is finishing the books. If something comes at me and it's a great offer, hey, obviously entertain it. And my wife is a very, very savvy business manager. She'll be all over that. But I feel my job is to write a book every year. And I can't be distracted from that. Like you said, you're working full time, you have all these other responsibilities. Like for me, and kudos to you guys for pumping out a book or 2 a year. I can only handle it. Like this year I have actually one and kind of a bit. Like I have working on a short story for an anthology. I have no experience as a short fiction writer. I'm kind of worried about that, but we'll see how it goes. And I'm also
my books aren't 600 pages either, so it's a big difference.
Yeah, no, true. And I'm also going to be co-writing a book with another author. So this is the first year I'm going to have multiple projects, and I still blog, write reviews, I write articles, I do all kinds of things. But anyways, point is, like I feel like my job is to write a book a year, and if I can just keep that commitment, I'm doing my job. And anything else, to be honest with you, even like is extraneous, right? There's Mikey. He's back.
Hey,
there you go. Lost you, buddy.
I'm sure the quality went up once I left.
Not at all.
We've been having lots of fun, but we'll go back now.
Okay, thanks.
So go ahead. Sorry.
Regarding this thing on translation, I was listening to a podcast the other day. They were talking to someone in Germany, and this person said that German kids start learning English in 3rd grade. So most of, the German population, which is one of the larger book buying populations in Europe, most of them speak English, read English. It's it's certainly not a bad idea, but I think, you kind of have the right of it. If someone comes up and says, hey, you could, here's this thing that you have this group in this place that really likes your work. If you were to translate it and pay to have it translated, you could probably do really well here. Then I guess you'd have to probably look at that. But right now it's just money being spent, and it's probably more expensive than having a super good audio book made.
Yeah, and a couple of very tacit, very kind of more tepid interests of that people approach me about that. And again, no disrespect to them, the money wasn't going to be a mint. So it was going to be pretty well performed. It wasn't going to be about some big events. It was going to be about, if you sell, then, you're open, like you said, you're opening up yourself to another huge market, and potentially, it has a lot of upside, but you weren't going to get some big events. So, and that doesn't mean that if they'd actually decide to go forward, that I would have turned it down because of that. It just means that, and these take time. And as an independent author, you're always trying to figure out what the next thing is. Do I spend money on ads? Do I try and get an agent so I can have him handle foreign translation rights, him or her? Do I do this? Like, what? It's always about, what am I going to do? Do I spend more money on covers to make them fancier? Do I spend less? Do I spend more money? Okay, I have a great editor, but now, I have 2 great editors. Now I want to get another editor. Like, there's who's that cutie? He's cute.
This is my demon dog, Shadow.
Oh yeah, she looked so demonic there, licking your face.
I keep telling him to play in traffic, but he doesn't.
But yeah, it's always about where you're going to invest your time, and that goes back to the audiobook question. That I decided, okay, first book, as all the research says, you're never going to sell if you have a long series, your first book is always going to sell the most copies, it's always going to have the most reviews. So I said, if I'm going to invest in an audiobook, it's going to be that gateway book. Shadow's Mike's perhaps. Yeah, I'm going to invest in that gateway book, that first book, and then we'll see. But my priority again is finishing a 7-book series, because I want those people who are like, okay, PL's kept his word. Now I'm going to invest in the series, right? That's my priority, right? So, and yes, I want to make it as available to in as many venues as possible. And there's lots of people who can only consume audio, and I'm sensitive to that. And I would love to, be wealthy enough to just publish 6 more audiobooks at the quality that the first one was, and I feel the first one was high quality. But right now, that's on the cards. Right now, I gotta spend the money on producing these.
But you've kind of set yourself up with that audiobook, because people are going to want to hear those voices again on the next one, and the next one, and the next one.
Well, thank you, Mike. Yeah, I feel like, again, as an indie, you have the latitude though. That I've seen the authors that they never had an audiobook for their 7 or 8 or 10 book series, and so they just banged them all off, right? Or they've decided they were only ebook, and then they said, okay, I'm going to publish all these physical copies. I'm going to get special editions. I'm going to do the beauty of indie is, and I really think, and obviously just like you two, we have friends who publish every way possible. Hybrid publishing, full big trad, 5 trad, indies, everything in between. However, the flexibility of being an indie publisher is something I love. The freedom, you do what you want, man. And I'm not saying that traditionally published authors don't have a certain latitude, don't have certain freedoms. I'm just saying, from my experience, there's just things you don't worry about. And if I want to make an audiobook tomorrow, you just make it, right? You don't have to worry about rights or you just make it. So.
Let me ask you one more thing, and then I think Mike is taking a breath to ask a question, and I cut him off. But are you planning on getting into FSBO in 2024?
No. First of all, I'm currently a SPIFBO judge. So before we go blog, again, I mentioned Robert Tabler. I am on the judging team. I have been for the last couple of years. I'm probably not going to do it next year. I will still blog, but eventually, yeah. So this co-writing project I was talking about with another author that I can't really get too much into, I think when that book comes out, maybe 2025, 26, we will probably definitely be throwing it in SPIFBO. SPIFBO is an amazing competition. Yep. No competition is perfect, but I think, as we've seen from, scandals in the last few years, especially recent times. No competition is perfect, but that doesn't mean that they don't have value. And it certainly helps promote and shine a spotlight. And I mean, for indie authors, this is big. Right. You have a huge traditionally published star like Mark Lawrence, supporting and organizing this thing. You have a lot of very popular top bloggers, indie bloggers that mostly read it, like Before Go Blog, that I'm a part of, putting out reviews of these books. And some of these books have thousands of views, and some of them have 2 or 3. Yeah. And some of the ones with 2 or 3 reviews end up going to the semifinals, finals, and some even winning it. And that's amazing. And of course, though it's not what it's made for, Mark Lawrence would tell you, it's no coincidence that a lot of the finalist books, especially, that they've garnered the attention of agents who want to take these authors and scoop them and give them book deals. Listen, traditional publishing is great, a lot of great things about it, but let's face facts, they're kind of lazy, right? So they see someone with an established audience, great book, obviously, it's easier to mine that field than the slush piles that they have. So it's I think SBFO is a great thing, and I won't be entering next year, but look for me in future years. So
awesome,
cool. So PL, I have questions about your covers, because the first one, you have the triangle and the circle prominently on there. Then you have a picture of like Altamira Cave or something with cave paintings. And then you went to just straight one color with just a little logo or something. I mean, they are so very different. They're not, why did we choose this? I mean, I like them. I like all of them, but normally you go with like a theme, but you're like, no, not doing that. I'm doing what I want.
Actually, no. And I respectfully disagree with that. And thank you for the call, by the way, that they're all themes, and it's hard when you haven't read the book to know what those themes are. But I mean, you've read the first book of Drowned Kingdom, and I think in a way it's kind of self-explanatory why that cover is the way it is. That is, and it represents. I mean, there's no secret, no spoiler. I'm writing about my version of the Lost Realm of Atlantis. It sinks, so that is part of the cover, and the symbol is a very important religious symbol that is a huge part of the books and the whole series. The second cover, The Last Atlanteans, that flag with the mammoth has significance. You may or may not remember from reading the first book that a mammoth does figure in the history and lore of the Drowned Kingdom, and that flag has special significance to the Atlanteans. So it's definitely a theme. It's a big problem. The third book is entitled Lord and King. There's a crown on the cover with the triangle circle in the middle. It's themed. This book, if you recall, there is a kingdom called Luncheon that figures near the end of Drowned Kingdom. Yep. Their symbol is, a rampant golden lion on blue, a lion's pride. That's why Luncheon figures. So they are all themed. Okay. But it's all different, and you'll see with the covers of all my books, it is directly related to a major theme in the book. Again, I've only read or listened to the first book, and when I see these, I'm like, these covers are not all in the same style. They're all, but I mean, it makes sense that they're each unique to their story. Yeah, and again, my covers are very simplistic. They're not, indie covers especially tend to be very beautiful, elaborate, like really eye-catching. Mine are, I go for the very minimalistic route. I want a centralized image that draws your attention. And like I said, they're not like some super duper hybrid covers, but they're clean. I think they're neat. They're classic. I think they're they'll age well. Yeah, they'll age well, right? So, if you pick this book up in 40 years, I mean, I think the cover will stand. So, that's why I made them the way they are. And I have my covers planned out for 20 books. So, but I think I would challenge that when you look at the books as a series. I don't have the fourth one with those other ones up there, but I think when you look at I have different promotional banners with the 4 together. I think they complement each other. Yeah, right? They do. But I just
the typography helps that out a lot, actually.
Yeah, the typography is consistent. You'll always have the PL Stuart at the top and the title at the bottom, and usually a quote at the bottom. I flip it up somewhat in different books, but yeah, I mean, it's there's some consistency and continuity, and that's big with me. That's the kind of person I am.
Yep.
So I want you to pick up a book and go. I want you to be able to pick up a book and go, that's a P.L. Stewart book. Even if the color looks a little bit different, that's a P.L. Stewart book, right? So, thank you very much, Bards and Books. Do you mind if I answer the question, guys?
Please do.
Is that okay?
They ask better questions than we do.
Brenda's covers and heard a lot of great things about the book. I have missed it, but how dark of a fantasy is it? Well, if I may say, my books are what has been coined by a few different writers. EL cover art is hard and kind of expensive. It's moral grimdark. So, yes, there are battle scenes, and with each book, there's more and more and more and bigger battle scenes. But there is some blood and gore and whatever. But and I'm not trying to minimize blood and gore. I'm just saying that typically fantasy books have some measure of fight scenes. Thank you. EL's opinion is that a stake could be a nice medium. Thank you. The darkness is in the morality. The darkness is in the character who is this flawed, bigoted character that is homophobic, racist, sexist. That's mainly darkness. And the darkness is in the things that he has to cope with. And there are some dark themes, but I'd like to think they're not, they're visceral, but they're not overdone. They're not gratuitous, I hope. I don't write gratuitously. I'd like to think that everything fits and has a meaning and there's a reason why it's there, because I'm trying to illustrate a point. But again, I think the darkest part of my books, besides the character and his ideology and his viewpoints, are probably the battle scenes. And again, they start off fairly light, but they keep growing in intensity, more battle scenes, bigger scope as the series goes on. So, that's probably one of the darkest parts of my books. So, thank you. Start nice place to go. I thought you did a good job starting from learning racism.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. And again, my book is not for everyone, and I'll say that again, and I respect that, and it's you may not want to read about a character like that, but I think for me the beauty is the growth, the journey that he takes, seeing him frustrate you, take 10 steps forward, 12 steps back, come to some level of understanding with some things, but still be entrenched on other things. Because I think hopefully, if I do nothing else, I would like you to read that series. And if you don't like the writing, you think it's crap, you don't like battle scenes, you don't like world building, you don't like anything, I'd like you to come out there thinking, you know what? PL wrote a realistic journey of a character who was trying to change. Because, sorry to break your bubbles, people don't change overnight. Yes, also show his huge chunk. Yes. People do not, human beings, we're stubborn. We do not change overnight. Hey, Grimdark. So yeah. We don't change overnight, man. And change is hard. And it is a process. I always use this analogy. If your aspiration is, say, to quit smoking, you may try a lot of different methods. You may try cold turkey, you may try the patch. You quit for a month, you start back smoking for 3 months, you quit for 8, you start back after a year, and then finally maybe you quit. But that's a process. It's rarely do you find people that just, because it's an addiction, because it's something, it's a habit, because it's part of you, right? So if that's your goal, to quit smoking, then it may take you a long time, could take you decades before you get there. And I think that's analogous to human beings trying to change, especially very rooted views such as bigotry.
So PL, I'm going to do something I almost never do, and that's give an honest compliment. But when I read your book, I was impressed because, you know what, this is not the typical fantasy where the hero goes and saves the day and can do no wrong, or he's very nuanced. There's things you like, and you're like, oh, that's just ugly. He really needs, you really wrote a real person there. And I don't think we get a lot of that in fantasy. I think you get a lot of tropes and stereotypes and go from there. But your book was phenomenal because of that. So
I'm extremely humbled coming from a fellow author. That's thank you. I'm very humbled, very honored that you would say some of that. So that means a lot. Let's be honest, we're all in trouble. I guess what else do we have as authors other than the honesty and the veracity of what we're writing, right? You got to be true to yourself, right? And I've lived a life where I've seen a lot of things. I'm kind of old now, and I've seen a lot, and I've seen people at their best, and I've seen them at their absolute worst. And I think that that life experience is probably, there's writers that are so much more intelligent than I am. There's writers that are so much better writers than I am. I think the one thing that I bring that's not necessarily an advantage over other people, just that I know that I bring personally is I think life experience.
I think
I've got it.
Actually, yeah. I will disagree with you. That's an enormous advantage because, like you've just said, it's all about characters, right? And the more people you meet, the more characters you meet, and especially in your line of work, you're going to meet a wide variety of characters. So that, I mean, the recluse who spends all their time at home or whatever has to draw upon what, stuff that you've seen on TV, other things that you've read, whatever. But there is nothing in fiction that's more head smacking than what some people do in real life. And you can sit there and go, I could write for 100 years and I would never think of someone doing that. Right. But,
yeah. And I do believe that my line of work has really, I'd like to show me quite the spectrum of society. And that I think is also written into my books. So hopefully that makes my characters somewhat credible and believable and well fleshed out. Because I'm a character-based writer, and I'm a character-based reader. So I love books that are heavy on the character work, and I write books that are, essentially most people would argue that the Dragon King saga is an enormous character study. So at its core. And I dress it up in a lot of world building and battle scenes and all the other stuff, but a lot of political intrigue. But really, at its essence, it is a character study of one dude who is trying to find his way, and he's pretty lost. And he doesn't know how to navigate the things. E.L. raised the excellent point about him being childhood in his views. He was brought up a certain way. He was raised a certain way. He thought he was at the pinnacle of his society, and that society was at the pinnacle of all societies. And it wasn't until everything's ripped apart that he was able to open himself up to looking at things differently. Now, mind you, and people don't, I think a lot of people don't realize initially, I wrote him to show that, but he still has some innate capacity to change. He does have some level of emotional intelligence, but that's buried under everything else, right? Yeah. It's buried under privilege. It's buried under upbringing. It's buried under, people don't want to give up their views, man. People don't want to admit that they're wrong or that they were thinking wrong all the way. People don't. Yes, good point, E.L. And tyrants always believe themselves superior. And let's face facts. I write a character, and Mike, you've read the book, that comes from a society that their playbook is colonialism. And colonial societies, what did they do? Empires. They come in, they conquer, they subjugate, they wipe out the cultures. Most, not all, not exclusively, but most empires basically lay themselves over top of the cultures that they conquer. They pose their religion, they pose their culture, and it's like as if the other cultures didn't exist. And right. Everybody has to conform to them. Yeah, everybody has to conform to them. And that's the playbook, right? Name your empire, right? Going back as far as you can think. So that being the playbook, you would think that someone like that who's leading the society he's got that playbook passed down to him by his ancestors, so in other words, hundreds of years of success. So why would you go against the playbook? Why would you think the playbook isn't why do you think that play doesn't work?
It's worked a dozen times before. Why wouldn't it again?
Yeah.
On that happy note, we have gone well into our bedtime.
Oh, sorry, I apologize. I kept you guys up.
Had this line of conversation started 20 minutes ago, we would still be talking about it. But I think you've hit a new high water mark for time. So
I'm honored for you giving me your time. Thank you. I am humble. Thank you.
Yeah, throw your book up there one more time.
This is book 4 in the Dragon Kingdom saga, Alliance Pride. It is book 4 of his 7-book series. Each book is published a year apart, and God willing, I am committed to do that. The next book in the series, entitled A Pack of Wolves, is expected in the spring of 2025.
Because that just came out. You just got that today.
I literally I told you guys my good luck charm. I literally got my, people were messaging me and putting on Twitter and told, yeah, I just bought the book and blah, blah, look at this. I'm like, I don't even have it. But I tell you guys are my good luck charm because the soft covers just came in today. Nice. So and this is my baby. So now I get to kind of, the most special feelings you guys know as authors is you get to see all the mistakes you made too after editing.
Right. Yeah. And they come out at you once it's printed. Yeah,
but the cool thing is when you get to hold in your hand, you realize this is a live baby. It's out in the world, but now you have your copy. It's very meaningful. So I'll probably sleep with it tonight.
Congratulations on book 4, and I hope you meet or exceed and don't fall into the Martin trap, and book 7 makes its way out in a couple of years.
And the same to you guys. Please keep writing. Can't wait to read your works. And I put this on public domain so that I can't take it back. We would be honored at some point, Taylor and I, to have you two on Page Chewing. So I hope you would extend us the honor at some point of coming on and joining us on our channels.
We'll check your ratings.
You let us know. We'll screw up your show too.
Fabulous.
All right. Thanks, PL. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
We've come to that awkward time where we all wave and wait for it to finally end.